I am going to be chatting with you on this podcast episode about hosting an online event and kind of some things that you could perhaps keep in mind. Because here's the deal: everybody has either recently moved their in-person event to the online space, or they're going to be having to probably this fall. Or they're seeing that, hang on just a second, this online event. Like that's just something I've never thought before. I wonder if I could do one of those things. And I want to tell you, yes, you can. We just got done doing one for nearly 400 people. And so I want to tell you about how you can, some things just to think about for an online event here in just a second. If you're starting an online event from scratch, like this is such a great time to do that. And I want to talk to you about that. But real quick, if you're needing still to shift, maybe you have a conference already planned and you still need to shift it and you're just not sure how. I will tell you that there were several things that we really had to think about, and just in no particular order here. I just want you to think about things like swag bags, because the swag bags, giving them to them at the door in person or sitting them on their chair is a very different experience than putting them in the mail and having that postage and then having people be like, I didn't get my box. And then you're being like, well, I sent your box. And then being like, well, I still didn't get it. And then you want to cry and you just want to drive it to their house, which is weird. And so just know that things like swag bags, they look different in the online space. Things like, the speakers. A lot of speakers are used to being on stage with a microphone. And so shifting them to the online space, sometimes you need to determine, well, how will the speaker do best? Will it be with a one-on-one conversation? The two of us on here, will it be just them, in front of their Zoom camera? Do I need to give them kind of a framework to work within? But really kind of think about, if you've already got speakers lined up, to pivoting them. We had to really pivot our breakout sessions. And the way we ended up doing the Equipped conference is we really tried to we already had our schedule and everything, because of course the conference was 3 weeks away when we shifted. And so we already had the entire calendar laid out, down to the 5 minutes. At 9:55, you will be back in the auditorium for worship. We had it dialed in, right? And so if you're going to do it digitally, what we ended up doing was just keeping our exact schedule. And we worked in, the times that people would have been out to a breakout session. We had all of the breakout sessions pre-recorded by all of our guests. So they could literally, our attendees could go ahead and do a breakout session, in the middle of the day from 1:30 to 2:30 when we would have been normally doing it in person. And so just know that breakouts, they are going to have to look different. They're all obviously, we did them recorded instead of live, because it would have been impossible to manage 20 different breakouts at once. And so the breakouts, it's kind of a different deal. And the other thing that I really want you to think about is how gifts and giveaways, they kind of look different. If you're shifting something that's in person to online, you're going to have to figure out how to get people more excited, and how to do it bigger, and how to really make it beneficial for your vendors and those sorts of people. And don't forget about your vendors and your sponsors. We've tried to just really love on them and give them lots of shout outs and social media posts and push people in their direction, because it's kind of different when you're sponsoring something in the online space than what it is when you're doing face-to-face. So that's what you need to consider. Just some things that I thought of randomly if you already have a conference and are shifting. But for those of you who are like, well, I'm not shifting anything, but I do think I want to do an online conference, I'm going to give you 3 tips, just 3. There's a million that I could, but we've broke it down into just 3 that I want you to keep in mind as you think about an online conference. So number 1 is to just give incredible value. You're going to almost have to over-deliver on, if you're just going to have a digital conference, an online conference versus the face-to-face. Tons of value with great speakers, great resources, great training. Can you do any extras? Like we had worship music at the beginning and the end of every day. We had countdowns to the speakers. We had still a time of prayer at the beginning. I still had my pastor come on and bless the conference at the very beginning. I still had an altar call at the very end. So we tried to keep things and bring as much value, if not over deliver, in the online space is what we did on the face-to-face. So just think of how can you just go the extra mile so that people will feel so seen and so like validated and they would feel like they can get out of the online conference what they would have actually received in the face-to-face. I'm going to tell you something that Nell's probably going to be like, Jen, stop talking right now. But the truth is, after having an online conference and feeling like we over-delivered, I'm going to tell you something, friends. This is going to go totally against everything else I'm talking about. But There's no substitute for the face-to-face. There just isn't. It's unfortunate that, what has happened in our world in the last couple of months has really separated and divided. I will tell you, our conference was powerful. Lives were changed. We've had people give their life to Christ. They have gotten so many great business ideas, etc. But if you're wondering if I think an online conference can be as powerful as the face-to-face, I'm going to say no. Ooh, Nell, I'm so sorry. Let me just apologize for it in advance. I'm going to say no. It's different because here's the thing that you are competing with. You can give all the value in the world, but you're competing with the distractions that come from being at home. You're competing with the dog needs to go out and go potty. The UPS guy just came. The kids are home from school and are want Cheetos for the 36th time today. You're competing with can I go pick up so and so on the golf cart? Mom. You're competing with that. You're competing with all of the things. See, the thing for me is whenever I've gone to a conference and I leave home, like I can dial in, right? And I can like network with people while I'm there and meet new people while I'm there. It's harder. It's just harder doing it online. Give as much value as you can. Still try to figure out how can you do some things to really give so much value if you're going to do it online. Can you give them a Facebook group privately just for them? Can you let them introduce themselves, introduce their business? Maybe do, some meetups. You can break them out into different Zoom rooms or something, but think of how you can just over deliver on value, because the truth is I don't believe it'll ever be the same as an in-person face-to-face. I hate that the enemy has tried to rob us of the face-to-face interaction. And this is coming from the girl who doesn't even like speaking on stage with a slideshow and a clicker. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Give me a good panel. I'm here for a good panel. I love the one-on-one conversations with me and the host. I love that on stage. It's my absolute favorite. But I'm shocked that I'm even saying it's not the same in the online. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to really over deliver. Second thing is to really practice the tech. And then I'm going to tell you, go ahead and just practice the tech again. Okay. So practice the tech and have a backup plan. Now listen, if you are not a techie person, then this is where you call, your best friend's, brother's neighbor's son who's really good at all things techie, and you'll be like, yo, I need some help for the day. I literally need somebody smarter than I am to sit here for 8 hours straight today while we do this conference and make sure the tech stuff goes. And I want you to make sure everything from like, let me just give you an example. We had worship music that we were going to be playing at the beginning of every session, at the end of our session. And so the 2 days of Equipped were broken into 4 sessions. And it was something like weird that we had to do on Zoom, where we had to like fiddle with the speakers and the output. And it's the kind of thing that makes me want to drink, because I'm not techie at all. And so I am just so grateful that our team went through it twice. And once with the speakers, we didn't make them like do their speech or anything like that, but just to make sure they could get on and off. And I knew how to pull them up. And, I've done about 1 billion Zoom calls in both one-on-one coaching and group coaching in the last 6 years of coaching people in business. Like I've done about 1 million. But let me just tell you, there's more pressure when you have paying people who are there, and they expect to get good value. Not a good time for your internet to not be working well. Not a good time to find out that Zoom's requiring you to do an upgrade. Not a good time for your computer to need a reboot, whatever. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. But it's, practice, go through it beforehand, because you don't want any surprises. You don't want any surprises. So practice the tech, have a backup plan. Like our backup plan was just trying to somehow figure out how to go live in the Facebook group if we had to. We would have scrambled, but the girls on the team had a backup plan if we needed it. But I'm really grateful that after, practicing through it several times, that technology went off without a hitch. And we did make sure, definitely record the entire thing and make sure that you make the recording available to your attendees. The last thing is just, it's kind of a crossover with number one, just show up as much as you can, as if it would be the same as if you were in person. You're going to have to work harder to keep people's attention. There's going to be so many more distractions. So do things like asking them to use the comments on Zoom. I highly recommend, we used Zoom for our last conference. And I love that. You might need somebody that works with you or for you, or that can be working for you for the conference anyway, to man the Q&A on Zoom, to man the chat on on Zoom and to answer any questions. Use that chat though, so that you can like ask for, questions like, hey guys, it's so good to see everybody. Okay. Just so that I am fully aware of who's here on the call today. I want to know, your name and where you're from, or your name and what you do, but think of ways you can get them excited even from home. And that is time really well spent. So be super engaging. It's anything that you need to do to really create an atmosphere that feels as close to being in person as possible is what I'm going to suggest that you do. The giveaways matter. The breaks matter. The breakout sessions matter. The way that you end things matters. The Q&A matters. And so again, I don't believe that we'll ever be able to see a virtual event that can deliver the same exact punch as the person to person. And one of the reasons, let me just say this. A lot of times I will go to conferences without getting, down a really religious rabbit hole here, but I know what happens in terms of, anointings and being in the presence of greatness and being near people who have a gifting that you're really wanting to grow. And so I know in my knower that when I get into a room, I'm thinking of my friend, Sarah Jakes Roberts. I went to Sarah's conference back last July in Denver, and the electricity that's in the room for an event like that, it's not going to be the same as what it would be in the online space. So like in the case of Sarah, because the environment is so highly charged and the worship music is so amazing and there's a laying on of hands and there's people coming to the altar, that's, you miss that part in the online space if you're going to try to do it online. And so I know for me, I want to be physically up close and in the same physical space with people who God has completely given his favor to. Does that make sense? And so for that being said, here's what I want to end with and plant these seeds. For those of you who are listening and you're like, I don't know, I've never really thought of having a conference. Listen, it's a great time right now to try your hand at conferences in the online space for the first time because everybody's doing it. And I've told you guys on a previous podcast, we're not going to give coronavirus any kudos or props at all, right? In fact, it can go back to hell where it came from. But right now, do things under the cover of COVID. Everybody's trying things. Everybody's just throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks. So if ever you've I wonder about having an online conference, girl, go now. Go now. Don't be sitting and thinking about it because the world is going to open back up and things will go back to normal in the name of Jesus and conferences will be held in person again in Jesus' name. But right now, while we can't, do yourself a little online thing. You don't need but a couple weeks to prepare and get this in front of your audience. You send them an email. You have them a link in there that is a way that they can give you money in the online space. And I know a lot of my creatives right now are like, I don't know how to do that. Well, that's why you have VAs. This is why you hire people smarter than you in areas that you are not proficient in so that you can stay in the lane that God gave you and they can stay in the lane God gave them. You just work with the content that would be delivered and how you're going to serve your audience and what people would talk about and how you can, be as big of a blessing as possible. And you let somebody techie figure out how the credit cards are going to go through. And so if you've thought about having a conference, I would 100% suggest you start with one online. You don't have a food bill. You don't have a hotel room bill. I don't know if you know this, but when you have an in-person conference and you have the hotel fee and people are traveling in and usually you're able to negotiate terms for a book of hotels rooms. And you guys, let me just tell you that as sure as I'm sitting here, that whole experience has almost stole my salvation more than once. And I have told my team, again, we will never do that again because it's a hot, stinking mess of people are reserving rooms and they're getting the discount and then you need more rooms and then they give you another block. And it's not the hotel's fault, but it's definitely not my fault. It's not your fault. So it is kind of the hotel's fault. And so it can be a mess. And in the online thing, you don't have that mess to deal with. So while I still think that it's powerful to be in person, Ooh, it could be profitable for you just to do it online. Zero overhead, my friends. Zero overhead. So I hope this was helpful. Was this helpful? I hope that this was helpful. If it was helpful, will you do me a favor and just go over to Instagram, send me a DM, let me know. If you're wondering about Sarah Jake's conference, it was in July this year, and still waiting to hear, about Sarah's Woman Evolve conference. But I am believing that we will be going back to face-to-face conferences. But in the meantime, if ever you were going to try an online conference, now's the time, my friend. All right. Until next week, be blessed. Bye-bye.